Connecting community through business, building relationships, and building Waterloo Region. 570 News presents Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
Welcome to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy. And you know what they say, it's that time of year again, gentlemen. Oktoberfest is here again. We've got Dave McNeil, Executive Director of Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest, standing by. Delighted to chat with him and a couple of other guests on the program.
Yeah, we're very pleased to have Todd Banks from the Sherwood Park Chamber of Commerce, and he's going to follow on that conversation we had, which was very exciting for us, for Greg and I, hearing about all the opportunities that are available for manufacturers from the region of Waterloo in Alberta.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting to almost hear the desperation in their voice. You
yeah.
know, like I think Ken Cobley told us afterwards, you know, if you're bringing a delegation out there, if you're bringing your members bring your order book.
Yeah.
Like, how more excited and passionate and aggressive can you be than to say we're ready to give orders?
When I was just talking to Dave Kuntz from Kuntz Electroplating, who's an old firm from this neck of the woods, and said, look, I'm not sure there's a fit, but boy, there's an opportunity, and there's going to be a delegation come from Alberta. So it's that type of business that are old traditional manufacturing that are doing advanced manufacturing now, and we want to connect those folks up and see if we can get
But hopefully we get Todd Banks, who's really in the heartland of all of the companies that are having trouble out there from Sherwood Park Chamber, and we'll discuss the opportunities there. But you know what, Ian? Next week is going to be a great week.
In my favorite week of the year.
I know why it's your favorite week.
Well, I know. It has something to do with...
You very rarely remember it.
No, chicken dance. No, I'm just kidding. No, we have... I've been involved with Oktoberfest for a long time. I was one of my first volunteer gigs was on the parade committee. I don't know if you knew that, but I was on the parade committee a long, long time ago. And working with Elaine Peterson.
I thought you would have been in the Uncle Hans suit.
Well, I was big enough at one point to do that without a suit. So thanks for noticing that I've lost some weight. In any event, Dave McNeil is joining us, and Dave's you've been a long-time volunteer with the festival, but you've taken on the role of executive director. So tell me how has that transition been?
Well, you know what? It's been a really good transition. Fortunately, I've been around the festival for about 20 years as a volunteer and in different capacities, so it's not totally new to me. What is surprising, though, is that, you know, in this job, it's a totally different spin. You know, you think you know everything about Oktoberfest, you think you're prepared and you're ready to go, and then you really get into it and you find out what's happening.
And so how many things that Oktoberfest is involved in the community, aside from that sort of 2 weeks of fun.
Exactly. And, you know, we're counting down the days now, 5 more days, and the keg's officially tapped and we're ready to go. But, you know, we've been working on this since we put the bung in the barrel last year at Chicopee and wound it down. So it's really a full year thing.
And it's really neat that it's, you know, we've worked really, really hard in Cambridge to kind of tie into it. And one of the big advocates, as both of you know, Councillor Carl Kiefer from Cambridge.
Yep.
You know, he's always been pushing, and now finally we've got that, you know, that formal event that happens each and every year with the mayor of the city of Cambridge, and Cambridge is really embracing it. Our hotels for years have been full of visitors that are going to Oktoberfest, and really why we haven't knitted that relationship more solidly, I don't know why, but thankfully that's on the agenda now.
But you guys are getting more involved, and I know there's an accredited fest hall now in Cambridge, and I think it's the Rotaries, isn't it?
The Rotary,
Cambridge Bavaria House.
They do a fantastic job, and you know, I was a little bit concerned because you know, getting out of the gate with them was a little bit slow, and you know, when you get a Rotary organization who really depends on getting something out of running the fest hall, I was afraid they were going to drop it, but they've been diligent and they're hanging on, and it gets better and better and better every year.
And they do a great job. They've got that branded vehicle driving around Cambridge. Everybody notices it. It's popping up on our social media everywhere. People see it. They do a great job. And you know what? I have to say, Cambridge is well represented. I'm a Cambridge boy.
Good boy.
You know, I actually call myself a Preston boy. That's part of Cambridge, right?
No, we're not going to go down there.
A little bit of a sad year from Oktoberfest perspective. You know, we had a great loss. That organization had a great loss this year, and you know, but I know he's certainly looking down on the festival and going to be there to make sure that everything comes off smoothly.
Yeah, and he's a big part of everything we're doing, and you know, it's really brought everybody together in Mark's memory to make sure that this kicks off.
And for those that don't know, Mark Kreller, the executive, your predecessor, passed away very suddenly last
April.
Last April. So yeah, and that was his ad. And I worked very closely with Mark.
We all knew Mark. Mark was an institution in the community, not just through Oktoberfest, but everywhere else, and was a great guy. And
and so it's been great. I mean, that's sad, but there's new energy that Dave brings to the festival, and I think he's been a great source for the staff of sort of a good transition because you've been so involved. And we're really looking forward at the KW Chamber. I think this is the third. We started that just as soon as I got there and said we got to do something with Oktoberfest. We were a founding partner, as a matter of fact. Some of our board of directors were the founders of Oktoberfest way back when. And so I said it's time to get back in. So we're having our third annual Chamber Fest, which we do on corporate night at Concordia Club, and have 400 very excited business folks, and we do a keg tapping, and then they go into the corporate tent night, or a corporate night in the tent.
Like a lot of our events, it's a tough ticket. I mean, these tickets go quickly, and people start sitting back waiting to get them, and all of a sudden they're gone. And it's
that president and CEO of the Greater KW Chamber is a big fester.
He wears his lederhosen in to do the show.
My dad was trying to get me to wear his lederhosen, which it may have fit about 40 pounds ago, so I'm not wearing that.
Dave, it's often been said that this festival, the largest of its kind in the country, the second largest in the world, is a real boon to the local economy. In simple terms, what does it mean to the economy? What does it do for that 10 days?
In really simple terms, it's our 45th year, and we've done some economic impact studies, and what we're really trying to get some messaging across is over the 45 years, at some point this year, perhaps early next year, we're going to recognize $1 billion of economic benefit to the community. So, I mean, when you start stacking up year over year, we say the economic benefit's about $21 to $28 million a year. So when you start stacking up 45 years, it's a big thing. It's a big deal.
Where does that, and just so people, the order of magnitude of the types of business that are impacted. Obviously, you got hotels and restaurants and the fest halls. Got transportation. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different sectors that benefit from the festival.
And the other thing that really surprised us through the study was that the local community comes out and spends more money during that 11 days than they would otherwise. So they're engaged in local restaurants. We kind of sometimes think that our local community takes a little bit of hit when everybody's going into the fest halls and, the bars aren't quite as full as they used to be. But our economic impact study is telling us that local restaurants are doing well, that people are going out and entertaining folks around town. So, I think there's a benefit right through the community.
And while it's a beer festival, and that's, and our German festival and celebrating beer primarily, it is. But you guys have also done a good job, I think, over the last number of years of saying you're getting families involved. There's a whole bunch of things. Like I took my kids last year to Concordia Club to Family Day, and it's a fantastic opportunity to kind of let kids do the dancing in a very, a great way, and sort of, educate them about some of the other reasons that Oktoberfest is important to the community. So, I think that's great. But you've got a whole series of things that families can do.
Yeah, the family and cultural events are huge. And, starting at Uptown Waterloo with the pancake breakfast on Saturday, the Rogers Group, a fantastic event for families. Yep. We follow that up with the barrel race. Up at 35 years this year for the barrel race in Uptown Waterloo. We've got Bogenschützenfest out at the Hubertus House, the archery competition. It's always a well-attended, fun event. This year, we've partnered up with Blackberry, and we're doing Oktober Feast in the Waterloo Square on Saturday and Sunday. So we've got, I believe it's 11 or 12 food trucks coming in, and we've got some German dancing going on. We've got some music entertaining the square. So there's all kinds of things to do for family. Our Fest Guide's coming out, so if anybody's looking for something to do, everything's listed in the Fest Guide, and of course it's all on our website at www.
Well, as Chambers of Commerce, one of the big things for us is networking, and you can't get better networking than all through the week of Oktoberfest. So.
Well, I get a little bit of ribbing, because some people remind me that there's the difference between networking and not working is one letter.
Well, there's a lot of things that are going on with business during Oktoberfest, and we partner with the CTT and Chamber, and we have something called Passport to Success, which, the businesses that are here, we're out encouraging other businesses to come to town and bring their investment and bring their jobs here. And so Oktoberfest, and along with CTT and our mayors and local officials.
Well, we really demonstrate to them. We really demonstrate to them how to do business.
That's how to do business. That's right. But that's an event that comes up next. It's on Wednesday
of next week.
Next Wednesday, and traditionally we have 20 or 30 folks from right across the world.
Exactly.
That come in, and we show them not only Oktoberfest, but I mean that's the cultural side, but we show them what we show them.
We
business.
tour them around the region. We take them to the University of Waterloo, show them what's going on there. This year they're stopping at Christie Digital. Mm-hmm. They're having a tour of the plant up there. So it's really immersing them in the community. You know, we're highlighting different things. We've got different mentors from the community coming in and talking to them. You know, we've got Taylor Jones from Deer Photograph, and he's coming in and he's going to talk about his experience as a Kitchener boy, moving to LA to find his dream and realizing that really his dream is here in Kitchener Waterloo, and he came back home and he's in the hub as one of the startups there. So,
just before we go, the biggest event. I think it's the biggest parade in Canada, is it not? Every year is the Oktoberfest parade, and I know we all pray for good weather, but tell us a little bit about it and how people can get engaged in the parade.
Yeah, we get numbers anywhere from 150,000. CTV reports that they get about 1.6 million viewers a year. So
really showcasing
Monday morning of Thanksgiving Day down the parade route, we all hope for great weather. It starts on Herb Street in Waterloo and makes its way down King Street. For the next couple of years until the LRT comes in, then we'll have to find a new route for it. But we're working on that now. And it leaves Herb Street at 8:45 and makes its way down the street.
Great, fantastic. Looking forward to it. It's just one of the great things about living in this community. The 45th annual Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest, and as Greg said off the top of the show, Cambridge now heavily involved with its own accredited fest hall. Dave McNeil, the new executive director of Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest, has been our guest. Dave, thanks for coming up.
Thanks very much for having me.
Danke schön. And as Greg said, everyone is willkommen during the spirit of Gemütlichkeit. You're listening to Business on 570 News, powered by Save On Energy.
Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business. It's not just what you know, it's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News. Powered by Allstream. All local, all relevant, allstream.com. Here's your host, Glenn Pelletier.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save On Energy. Ian McLean, Greg DeRocher, presidents of their respective chambers of commerce, the Greater KW and the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. And last Sunday, gentlemen, you were live on location from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce annual general meeting in Kelowna, BC. What was that like?
In beautiful Kelowna,
beautiful
British Columbia,
Okanagan Valley.
15 degrees, drizzly, cloudy.
Yeah,
it was
a great.
If you were there for a vacation, I think you'd have been a little bit disappointed. But it is absolutely a beautiful part of Canada.
Gorgeous spot. Yeah.
Did you do it? Was it all business, or did you see any vineyards or anything?
Yeah. They keep you fairly active in the sessions, and especially the policy sessions, which are critically important from our perspective, because we sit down with our peers from across the country in the Canadian Chamber of Commerce committees and executive members, and we develop business policy going forward that we're really charging Perrin Beatty, the president and CEO of the Canadian Chamber, with the responsibility of going to the government and saying, these are the initiatives that we want you to fight for on behalf of Canadian.
Tyler Farr with Redneck Crazy, the long-awaited debut album from country's brightest new star.
Our chamber and co-sponsored a couple with several other chambers, and Cambridge wasn't a formal, but we had worked on these together. And so there was three that we brought from this neck of the woods, and one was on and it was something that the chamber has dealt with over a number of years, but was falling off the books. And we said, look, we need to put a focus on homelessness and ending homelessness in Canada because of the costs of that, but also getting new housing stock, which helps business create those and creates jobs. So we had one related to homelessness, which sounds a little counterintuitive.
It's funny you
business.
should mention that, Ian, because I'm sure you're aware the Vital Signs report came out last week, indicating that was an area of concern.
Yeah, and that is one of those things that people may not know is business are really concerned about those types of issues as it relates to community building. The other two that I Greg can to touch on them is one was on infrastructure and communities and saying we need to continue down that road of having the partnership between the private sector, and all levels of government in actually replacing and improving our core infrastructure in the country. So that's another one that all chambers are pretty. And finally, we had one on manufacturing and doing the things, whether it's and specifically keeping the accelerated cost allowance. So small, medium, and large-sized business that want to invest in their manufacturing facility. That one actually got broadened out. We had lots of discussion, and they said, look, don't just do it for advanced manufacturing, so it's now oil, gas, mining. For anyone that wants to make investments to modernize their business, we're saying have those incentives.
Which I think is a good thing. You know, from a manufacturing perspective, that's kind of close to our heart here in the region of Waterloo. And those folks out west said, well, what about oil and gas and those industries? And we thought, you know, absolutely no objection to that.
Question
that's
for
really
you guys.
good.
I wonder, I mean, I know it was tabled by a local MPP. And was there any discussion either from their end, the people you were talking to, around the water cooler, or did you bring it up? And that's Mr. Harris's bill, the Fair and Open Tendering Act, that was defeated at Queen's Park.
Not specifically about that bill in the broader context, but there was lots of discussion. We were talking about it with our Ontario colleagues. Now, there's 450 member chambers in the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, so that belong to the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, from right across coast to coast to coast. But many of them, 98 of them, were represented from Ontario in of those 450 that were at 350 were in attendance, and 98 of them were from Ontario. So we had lots of discussion with several of our members, McCartney from London, and some of the other fellows, because they know how important this issue is. And the way that it got for people right across the country is fair and open tendering. It should be a requirement that absolutely everyone is in support of, and the chambers are of saying, of course it should be. Everyone should have a fair crack at getting government procurement or government contracts, and whether you're a union or a non-union shop shouldn't matter. But having these special deals that screw taxpayers, in my mind.
Well, it was interesting talking to some of our Alberta colleagues, and I'm explaining, you know, the issue and Bill 73, and that it went down in defeat. And, you know, they looked dumbfounded on their face. They could not believe that any government anywhere would not believe that fair and open practices of tendering projects is not, you know,
keep in mind, many of the businesses in Alberta have unionized workforces.
Absolutely.
So it's not like there's no unions in Alberta. They say that's fine. You want to be union, don't care. But when you're dealing with government, everyone should have a fair crack at it, and that's got to be just a basic tenet. And I think that's what was on it. So we didn't deal with it directly, but we did deal with it to the context.
Even in BC on the left coast, they even said, you know, they had the same feeling. They could not believe that a government would actually look at that and not agree with fair and open tendering practices.
Mr. Parambidi, president of the Canadian Chamber, ostensibly the host for the event. What was the main message that he sent to you?
Well, I think that the message he gave is that we've made some progress in some of the issues around on things that are maybe a little harder to understand, you know, even for myself, but things about competitiveness and innovation and
skills
training are sometimes you kind of say, well, how does it relate to me? But those things are really important. So when you're talking about competitiveness, that's competing with everyone across the world. And so, and innovating to make sure that you're keeping up and keeping ahead of or on top of the wave, not getting buried by it. So he talked a lot about the things that he is doing both in provincial capitals, but specifically in Ottawa and around the world, of trying to bring the story about how Canadian business is making advancements in those things. And so we did talk a little bit. I mean, there was talk about, you know, what's happening with BlackBerry as an example, and you know, people are talking about, you know, these things happen. There's difficulties in business from time to time, but it's about how you deal with it and how you move forward. And so,
we were talking, Alan Odette from the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, as president and CEO, you know, had really good discussions with his colleague from the British Columbia Chamber of Commerce in really talking about how do we, you know, we need to battle these interprovincial trade barriers with respect to the wine industry. You know, both British Columbia and Ontario have a vested interest in wine and a vested interest in sharing their good fruits across the country, and it's a big challenge because primarily in Ontario, where you've got the LCBO, and they are very protective and about importing wines from outside of, especially Canadian wines. They're maybe not so protective for bringing in international wines, but for some reason or another, Canada becomes a problem. So he told me that they have had very positive discussions out there about working with the federal government and the provincial governments to do something about those.
I sure hope so, but they've been dealing with that for 35 years with no progress, and that's where provinces and I think what has slowed in the things that Perrin would bring to the table is trying explaining to the provincial governments why that is a self-defeating policy of not having open. I mean, we have free trade with the U.S. It's easier to trade with the U.S. than it is between some provinces on things like wine or where there's regional pockets, and that's ridiculous. We can't trade openly with our own fellow citizens, but we can with the U.S. That does not make sense, and it's the sort of thing that we as chamber members locally bring to the table. But we also we expect Perrin Beatty, and he's got the history and the ability to do that.
A lot of people don't realize that the Canadian Chamber of Commerce is the largest business advocacy group in the country. They have the strongest voice. Probably have the best relationships with all governments, not just conservative or liberal governments, but they have great relationships right across the plains. So, a lot of people can say what they want about Perrin Beatty. I think I've heard him say, people say that he's the best prime minister we never had, but he is a real negotiator. He's a real compassionate individual, really opens his mind up to hearing other sides of the story, but at the end of the day, certainly fights for what's right and what's right for business. And I think he does a great job for us, and we're happy to be there at the table every year. Where we can discuss these policies that we put in his briefcase to push forward.
Did you guys ever get hit up for Oktoberfest, I guess?
No. Well, there's a few people that a lot of people went to school here. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm from all over the country, and they say, I went to U of W or I went to Laurier. And so that's invariably what comes up. Oh, yeah, I remember I had a few, heavy head a couple of times when I was at Oktoberfest. So I was just lucky to make it back alive, though, because
you had an issue getting there.
I got to tell you, just quick, and I'll give.
Well, he kind of ruined my evening too, but.
Well, I left here, and WestJet, by the way, was great in all this, but they had some weather issues. I left here at 7:40, directly from Waterloo International Airport. Got into Calgary, perfect flight, half an hour on the ground. We're off to Kelowna, so I'm thinking this is great. About 10 minutes in.
Emails me when he's in Calgary. Can you pick me up at the airport?
Pick me at the airport. So he's coming out to pick me at the airport. I said, well, great. We'll be able to have a couple beers in the bar, and then it'll be off to bed because we have the crack of dawn to do business to business.
Yep.
And then the policy conventions. Well, we're about 10 minutes from, and it's getting bumpy. And it's not just left and right. You're crashing around. And there are babies crying, and there are people, upchucking, how shall I say? and we're about, I couldn't have been more than 500 feet from the ground on final approach, and all of a sudden we go straight up in the air, and he just aborted his landing and took us back to Calgary. So I ended up back in Calgary and stayed at a wonderful hotel. That's a story for another day. Overnight.
Don't put it on your list.
No, don't put it on your bucket list.
So they couldn't land in Kelowna?
No, and I think it was no, but this is where Canadian air traffic and safety. He came in, and it was obvious. And I've traveled a lot in small planes. It was wind shear. And when you're in the Okanagan you're talking about, through that valley, apparently they get this quite a bit. And he was getting crosswinds and was not able to land. So I spent a glorious night at the Greenwood Inn in Calgary.
The Greenwood Inn?
The Greenwood
Don't
Inn.
put it on your
air
list.
conditioning and one color TV?
I'm not even sure it had that. But anyways, they took good care of us.
Yeah.
They got us to Kelowna.
And what was great is and as he said, WestJet took really good care of him. Got him into Kelowna first thing in the morning because we had to go on the air live at 9.
Eastern time,
I was a little bit worried.
Oh, sorry, 9
about
your time.
Pacific time,
Noon here,
I was a little bit worried because we got the clocks kind of screwed up, and we were both thinking that he was landing at 9.
Yeah.
So I had a guy ready to go out and grab him at the airport and drag him in and throw him up into the room. But as it turned out, he was actually an hour behind in Calgary, so he was taking off at 7 our time and landing at 8.
When you're traveling and you go from the Eastern time zone to the Central time zone to the Mountain time zone, and I was in BC at one point, although I never touched down. I had changed my watch, and so I was on the wrong time schedule.
Yeah.
So
but it worked out great, and we had a good show, and you were saying that we came across loud and clear, so that's good.
All right. Great, guys. We'll continue this discussion, I'm sure, going forward, more about some of the initiatives out of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. You are listening to Business, powered by Save On Energy on 570 News.
We'll be right back with more Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy. Call in with your questions at star 570, 570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. You know. It's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News, powered by Save On Energy.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save On Energy. And John Finch is back again from Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro to talk more about the Save On Energy program.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming back in. And last week we were talking about the Energy Symposium. I've heard from a number of people today. In fact, saw a lot of businesses that have said they got good information on that. But let's drill down a little bit today on how to actually get started. So the first step is, I think you were just telling me off air that it is getting the assessment done. So tell me how you get that done, and what do you get from it when the assessment's done by the Save On Energy folks?
Yeah, right on, Ian. The first step when looking at energy savings is definitely to either contact your local electric utility, that being Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro, Cambridge and North Dumfries Hydro, and Waterloo North Hydro. Contact your utility and ask to speak to the conservation team. Mm-hmm. And what we offer right now is we have technical specialists on our teams, and they will go out to a business and do a walkthrough. Mm-hmm. So just as it sounds, we do a walkthrough. We look for opportunities. We work with the facility manager, and the first step is identifying where the opportunities are. So
things like, and so just to be very practical, we talked about lighting as being one of the low-hanging fruit last week. Yeah. But lighting's one. You look at HVAC systems.
AC, air conditioning is big right now. We're getting a lot of interest from companies looking at air conditioning. That's another one.
Okay, what about things like insulation, things that you can't see? Is it insulation, or is this more visible electrical usage of electricity?
Typically, it starts with technology. So in most buildings, lighting, air conditioning, controls. Mm-hmm. Controls are a big one these days. You look at manufacturing facilities, you have air compressors and process equipment and chillers. So it really depends on the building type, but I think the first step is contact one of the electric utilities that I mentioned and
get that assessment done.
And
so does that once you've got the assessment done, it really gives you a plan. So
exactly,
you can say and we're not talking about yes, you do large businesses, but you do everyone, small, medium, and large size business. So if you're a medium sized business and you got 10 or 20 employees and you've got a plan, you say, I can't do it all at once, but I at least know what I need to do. Can you stage this? I mean, is there any reason why you couldn't stage it over, say, a couple of years to fit it into your budget so you can make those improvements in terms of energy reduction and saving of cost?
Yeah, and that's a good plan for a lot of smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses, to break it apart. And you really got to build it into your regular maintenance within your facility. It's got to make sense for the business. Mm-hmm. And you got to look at the different pieces of equipment or the different opportunities, and you need to look at the return on investment. And that's what we help with. We will help figure out where the best investment of your money is within your facility, and then build it into your plan.
So I think last week you mentioned that if you replace your old fluorescent lighting system with a new one, I mean, the return on investment could be, so say, and give us some order of magnitude for an average size, maybe $4,000 or $5,000 for lighting.
Sure.
And you can see that return on investment in 1 year.
Absolutely. And, we'll pay up to 50% of the project cost. So you can see that our incentives for these retrofits definitely help the return on investment. And again, that's what you got to get from an assessment. That's what we're going to break down for you and give you that plan so that you got a good strategy for the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years.
So your plan comes in and says, okay, on the lighting system it could be $5,000. Your AC you may need to put another 10,000 in, but we'll start with the lighting. You're saying on the first on that $5,000 investment, the Save on Energy program would rebate half of that amount?
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And, for some businesses, what they'll do is, and I've been a part of it, you do one project. So, for example, let's say a business invests $5,000. We give them a check for $2,500. They take that $2,500 and reinvest it into an AC retrofit, an air conditioning retrofit.
So do the next thing on the list.
That's right.
Which ultimately lowers your whole. And that's what the program is. Save on Energy is about reducing energy demand in the province. The byproduct for business is that it's saving money off their bottom line if they do make those investments.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think for everyone, it's helping the environment by using less energy.
It's a lot of wins for everyone with this, and we're definitely out there trying to promote these programs and invite us in. I mean, we know what we're talking about, and we've helped. Alone in Kitchener right now, I was actually looking at our numbers, and 365 businesses have participated in this program. So I want everyone to participate right across Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge.
Well, John, you make a great case for it. It's always a delight to have you on the program. Is there a website where people can go to get more information?
Absolutely. If people go to saveonenergy.ca.
That's great. And in the coming weeks, we'll look at some of the specific programs again, and we can drill down a little more.
All right. Thanks for coming in. That's John Finch of Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro as Business to Business continues, powered by Save on Energy on 570 News.
Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business.
Back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy. And gentlemen, Ian, Greg, what a great show we've had thus far this afternoon.
Well, it would have been better if we could track down Todd Banks from the Sherwood Park Chamber of Commerce in Alberta, but I know he is traveling and in some meetings and obviously just got tied up. But, this is still an important issue, and we're going to bring Todd on, that's for sure, and Ken Cobley, the president and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. But it's really important that businesses, really listen up on this one, that there are big needs out in Alberta, everything from manufacturing, from I'm sure milling and steel fabricating and automation parts as well as construction.
Yeah.
They did go through a pretty devastating time with the floods, and they're even having difficulty getting some of that construction work done again. So we're hoping to work together with the two individuals out there. They're going to bring.
We are working.
Well, we are working with them. They're going to be bringing a delegation this way to meet with where we can target individual companies that have needs, with suppliers in our area that can do it, and hopefully mix them up.
What we're going to do is we are going to have Ken and I think Todd and a couple others that will come, and they will be armed with. Here's precisely what our needs are. And as it relates to manufacturing or supplying
We're
and
gathering
manufacturing.
that data now.
Yeah, and some of this will be oil and gas. And I think that's one thing that Jim Prentice, when he spoke to us twice now, is that there is lots of opportunity for Ontario business to supply the oil and gas sector. So there's lots of opportunities. I don't think we've really mined that enough. So what I'm saying, and I think we've talked about this, is if you're in manufacturing, if you're supplying within the manufacturing, doesn't matter what you do, get in touch with us. Let us know that you're interested. So contact Greg at the Cambridge Chamber or me at the Greater KW Chamber, because we're putting a list together. We want to have a good a group of people that can come and listen to what the opportunities are. And as Ken said, what I found most exciting, he says, bring your order book.
Yeah.
Because they are got so much opportunity for Ontario business, and whether that's to make things here and ship them out, whether it's to even partner and set up businesses out there, or to provide products.
Is this in general or just specific to post-flood?
No, I think
no, this is in general as well as post-flood.
You wonder, when you look at the Canadian economy, sometimes you kind of look at it and say, boy, I'm not feeling in Eastern Canada that we've got 2.5% growth or you're creating jobs. Well, where they're creating the jobs is in Western Canada. Saskatchewan and Alberta and BC are the places that are really cooking with gas, and Alberta in particular.
No pun intended.
No, exactly. Well, there was pun intended. It was unintentional, though. But there's lots of opportunity there, and the flood has only exacerbated the skill shortage that they have, and that's what Ken told us, and what others members after we got off the phone of the radio last week. We were at the conference and hearing from people after people saying, boy, we have lots of needs in Western Canada, and we need Ontario and the horsepower that we have here to do. And so let's get some of those jobs and some of that wealth and some of that business opportunity to folks here. And there's lots of opportunity. Yep. And that's why I mentioned Dave Kuntz, and I said, I don't know if there's anything, but there may be. And so you should come and hear what the opportunity is. He says, we'd love to do that, because if there's business to be done and they can do it, they'll be all over it.
When I first got to the conference, Ken Cobley, I saw him across the room, and he was waving his hands at me like, come here, come here, come here. That's how panicky he is. And
for those who don't know, Ken was on the show last week. He's the president of the Alberta Chamber.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So, there's going to be lots of opportunity. We need our businesses to let us know who's interested. I'd be surprised if no one was interested, but we need to know who that is. And so you got to get in touch with Ian and I, and so we can get you on that list to make sure you're there to meet with those people who are going to place.
And we want to do this in November. This is not, we're not talking off in the future. We're saying we want to do this in sort of first or second week in November, because there is work to be done right now.
Did you guys happen to talk specifically to anybody from Fort McMurray when you were there?
Actually, I saw the president of the Fort McMurray Chamber of Commerce. Yeah. Okay. So it's incredible.
We actually came home with a little sample in our bag of oil sands.
Did you?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you had any in-depth discussion with him about the whole Neil Young comment about comparing Fort McMurray.
No, we don't pay attention to that.
He got himself into a bit of hot water. I think
and rightfully so.
His music was banned from a Fort McMurray radio station.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous.
A couple of minutes to go, gentlemen. What have you guys got coming up?
Well, we have a business after hours on Monday night out at the Onondaga Farms, the Tim Hortons camp, just south of Cambridge on Highway 24, from 5 to 7 rather. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know whether you've been out there or not, but it's a really neat place, and they do some great things with kids who otherwise couldn't afford to go to camp.
That's great.
And so it's going to be neat for the business community to go out there and see what they can support right in their own backyard.
Great. And we have next week, or coming up, and not next week, but we have Passport to Success next Wednesday with all the business leaders and that we talked about earlier, and that's something I think you go to, and certainly I'll be there, and many business leaders and community leaders, and that's important. The following Wednesday we have our Chamber Fest, and we talked about that earlier, but that's 400 of our chamber members at the Concordia Club, and then into the corporate night tent, which is a fabulous event. I think we got about 5 tickets left, so if you're really desperate, you can give us a buzz. But we're almost sold.
Or you can take Ian's, because he really doesn't need to go out.
There's some events that I need to be at, so we're really excited about that. And then we've got Small Business Week, which I think we'll talk about. Next show we'll talk about Small Business Week, because we've got a senior vice president from BDC coming in and talk about how they help small business. And
we have an author, Barry Maltz. He's the author of Small Town Rules, and his subject's going to be how big brands and small businesses can prosper in a connected economy. So
that's great. So lots of stuff happening.
Yeah. All right. That does it for another edition. Next time we talk to you, it will be into the first weekend of Oktoberfest. Ian, Greg, always a pleasure. Thanks for listening. This is Business to Business, powered by Save On Energy on 570 News.